Remember when RPGs made you earn your greatness starting from nothing? A time when games didn't hand you importance but made you struggle, fail, and fight your way to the top. If you long for that raw, old-school magic, Drova Forsaken King might just be calling your name. But does it deliver? Let's dive in and find out if this is the RPG you've been missing. Hey everyone, Ghost here. Today I'm diving into Drova, a nostalgic indie action RPG with isometric pixel art vibes. After fully completing the game and having experienced it for over 100 hours, I've got plenty to share about its story, gameplay, and old-school charm. Developed by Just2D and published by Deck 13 on October 15, 2024, Drova has a lot to unpack. As always, let me briefly introduce myself. I'm a completionist gamer who primarily plays RPGs. For me, full completion means not just earning achievements, but also exploring different choices and story branches a game has to offer, if there are any. I like to think my commitment gives me the credibility to share insights you can trust. Now, let's talk about Drova. Just2D is a small German indie studio and aims to create games that respect players and capture the classic RPG spirit, minimal handholding and maximum freedom. They've drawn clear inspiration from classics like Morrowind and Gothic, and Drova carries many of their iconic elements. For those unfamiliar with Morrowind from 2002 or Gothic from 2001, these classics had their quirks but deliver meaningful immersive experiences, something many modern AAA games struggle to replicate. Drova channels this energy, starting you as a nobody and challenging you to rise through persistence and effort. While Drova is more forgiving than those old games, it doesn't shy away from challenging you. It offers enough guidance to ease you in, but won't hesitate to punish careless decisions, keeping the sense of earned progression intact. So, is Drova the throwback RPG we've been waiting for? Let's dive in and find out. When Drova launched, it had some bugs that caused issues for early players, but these were quickly addressed. By the time I played it a few months post-release, several patches has made the game perfectly playable. In fact, the latest major patch added a new difficulty mode and a new game mode, which meant I had to replay it just as I was about to record this video. During my playthroughs, I didn't experience any crashes or major bugs. I didn't soft lock myself out of quests by exploring too early, which I understand was a significant issue at launch. One patch even introduced a potion to respect talents based on player feedback, a great example of the developers listening to their community. Performance-wise, Drova runs smoothly as expected, though it pauses for a moment during saves. The game's quick-use key bindings are a bit unconventional, and I did occasionally eat food or drink a potion by accident during combat, but it wasn't a big deal. As a modern game, Drova includes welcome quality-of-life features, such as customizable autosaves intervals, adjustable font sizes, and the option to disable minigames. These small touches go a long way in making the experience accessible and enjoyable. Let's talk about Drova's difficulty options, which offer a range of challenges for different types of players. At launch, the game had two difficulty settings, Explorer and Classic. Explorer is a more forgiving experience, great for those who want to focus on the story and exploration. Meanwhile, Classic is the experience the devs envisioned, punishing, especially early on, requiring you to master the systems and adapt. Later, a patch introduced the Insane difficulty, which is brutal. This mode demands an in-depth understanding of the game, knowing which quest to tackle first, where to find powerful gear, and how to optimize your build. I can confirm it's a real challenge and not for the faint of heart. Another layer of difficulty comes from the game modes. Classic mode allows manual saves with up to 10 save slots, letting you experiment and recover from mistakes. On the other hand, Iron mode is essentially an Iron Man experience, one save file that auto-saves at certain points. If you make mistakes, you might struggle, but you're usually okay unless you paint yourself into a corner. That famous patch also added a Hardcore mode. It gives you a single save, and if you die, your run is over. You can downgrade to Iron mode to keep playing, but your Hardcore attempt is officially done. Even if I didn't exactly appreciate the experiences those last changes gave me, I think the best part is that these additions came directly from player feedback. It's great to see the devs listening to their community and tailoring the game to meet their expectations. Now, character creation in Drova is pretty simple, mostly about customizing your sprite. You can choose between male or female, pick your skin tone, hairstyle, hair color, and even add little details like pixelated beards, earrings, and eye patches. Keep in mind though that many of these details might be hidden once you equip a helmet or armor, so I don't know how much this matters. One feature that adds some depth to this basic system is the keepsake. You can select a starter item like an accessory or some melee implements to give you a small edge early in the game. While you'll eventually replace them with something better, they can be a lifesaver when you're just starting out. Once you've finalized your character's appearance, chosen a name and decided whether or not to skip the intro, useful for later runs, you're ready to dive into the adventure. It's a straightforward setup, but it gets you into the action quickly, which fits the game overall design. For Drova's progression system, it's inspired by classics like Gothic. At first glance it might seem a little odd, but it's easy to grasp once you understand the basics. Like most RPGs, you earn experience points by killing enemies and completing quests. Leveling up grants you 4 learning points, and you can also find learning stones scattered across the world, rewarding exploration with extra points. But here's the twist, you can't spend these points on your own. You need to visit trainers. Trainers specialize in different skills, and each has different talents to teach. For example, one trainer might focus on sword and shield combat and its related talents, while another focuses on two-handed axes or bows. Strength and dexterity attributes may be raised with almost anyone, but finding a trainer for mind is a bit of a challenge, fully intentional by the devs to keep things interesting. Beyond combat, some trainers teach lockpicking or crafting and gathering talents, like brewing potions or mining ore more efficiently. In my experience, picking up non-martial talents early opens up more ways to approach challenges and make money, whether it's setting traps for tough fights or cracking open a locked chest. The game also introduces a stat called prowess, which is the sum of all your attributes. It's critical for unlocking talents and equipping high-tier gear. If you need a little boost for that beautiful two-handed axe, equip rings that increase your attributes. They stack. While there is no hard level cap, you're limited by the finite number of enemies and quests. Some regions repopulate in later chapters, but eventually you hit a soft cap. From what I've read, the max level seems to be 29.5 if you milk absolutely everything out of the game. Don't know if that's a hard fact though. I've been very thorough and I always ended the game around level 27. As for builds, not all are created equal. Strength builds are powerful, while dexterity-focused builds are trickier but doable. Magic builds start slow but become incredibly strong later on, especially with the extra mind points you can earn by unlocking shrines. Abilities and spells play a huge role in combat, like powerful strikes that cause bleeding or poisoning, while spells can deal massive damage or provide utilities like short-distance teleportation. Both rely on focus, which you build during battles by dealing damage, or having a high base focus by increasing your mind attribute. Combining these tools effectively will turn you into a beast. So, while Drova's progression system might feel unique to younger RPG players, it's rewarding and offers plenty of room for experimentation. Whether you want to crush enemies with brute force or through magic and tactics, the game gives you the tools to succeed. Some are just more complex than others. Now, let's talk a bit about the story without spoiling anything major. I'll just give you a general sense of the plot and the atmosphere. You start as a peasant in a small Celtic village where life is hard and things go south quickly. After a group of warriors brings back a mysterious red crystal, it sets off a series of events that lead you into Drova, the other world. It's not the peaceful place the legends describe, and as you explore, you'll soon realize just how harsh and unforgiving this world is. The story progresses through 5 chapters, and while you are driven by the need to survive and complete a mission, your journey is full of tragic and dramatic moments that force you to reckon with the world around you. You'll join one of 2 factions, and your choices will influence your path, but the story remains fairly linear, which some players might find limiting. The reason behind it might just be that this is an indie production, but there might be another one. Your character is not the chosen one. They are someone who is experiencing the story and consequences of some powerful people's decisions. I do have a personal theory though. I suspect Drova could be some kind of afterlife or purgatory, where people are living out cycles of their past mistakes. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, but I'd love to hear what you all think about it. Beyond the main storyline, Drova offers plenty of side quests that flesh out its world. Some of them are unmarked, and you'll have to piece together clues to uncover them. The quests are numerous and varied, with moments of humor and heartbreak alike, like helping a group of unwilling bandits or finding yourself trapped in a slave camp. The depth of these side stories really made me feel like the world was alive. Sometimes quests grant you temporary companions. They're essentially invincible in battle, which is a huge help. If defeated, they fall on the ground unconscious, but raise up again after a few seconds. Very useful, especially early on, when everything is tougher than you. Overall, I think the story, while somewhat linear, delivers some unforgettable emotional highs and lows. The game has two endings, one perfection, plus a special one you may unlock if you are particularly thorough. It's a ride that you'll likely remember long after finishing the game. Exploration in Drova is one of the game's strongest aspects. It truly captures that old-school sense of wonder, the feeling of setting off into the unknown, discovering new regions, and constantly being surprised by what you find. The world is open, but it's far from hand-holding. The deeper you go, the more dangerous it gets. NPCs will warn you to stay on the roads, and while that's good advice, it's not always enough. There are plenty of environmental hazards that could pose a threat, whether it's thorny vines or traps hidden in plain sight. The game encourages you to think on your feet and use the environment to your advantage, luring enemies into hazards or carefully navigating dangerous areas. There is a variety of biomes to explore, each with its own distinct atmosphere, from eerie bogs to crumbling ruins. They all have their own unique enemies, music, and resources, making every area feel alive. The exploration itself is thrilling. Dark caves filled with monsters, abandoned ruins hiding treasures, and dark forests that offer more than just wildlife. You'll want to pay close attention to every detail. The game doesn't hold your hand, and there are plenty of moments where you need to trust your judgment to decide if you're ready to face certain areas. One of the cool features is the examine mechanic. By interacting with the environment, you can uncover hidden treasures, find shortcuts, or track down enemies and animals. Puzzles are another fun part of exploration, especially in ancient ruins. These range from straightforward tasks like activating teleportation circles or solving mosaics to playing peculiar tunes on a harp to open secret doors. They're mostly simple, but they're rewarding, especially since they often unlock secret treasures or new paths. The game doesn't provide a traditional world map. Instead, you start with a rough sketch and buy better maps as you explore. The lack of a detailed map means you need to pay attention to your surroundings, marking down important locations, hidden paths you find, cave entrances, and so on. You have to buy ink to start annotating your maps. It's an old-school approach that keeps you more engaged and forces you to pay attention, as the areas you revisit become easier to navigate once you map them out yourself. Another fun touch is the ability to pet animals, which, believe it or not, is tied to an achievement if you manage to pet all the unique creatures in the game. It's a small detail, but it adds some heart to a grim world. You'll run into plenty of challenges while exploring. Everything from giant spiders in dungeons, to bandits lying in ambush, to incredibly annoying bog fauna. But it's not all about fighting. Sometimes you need to use stealth in certain situations, sneaking around NPCs or monsters, or lockpicking chests to gather the resources you need. It's a very basic system, but it does its job. There is also a weather system with rainy days and thunderstorms that make the exploration feel even more atmospheric. I have to say the world of Drova feels alive. You'll find people relaxing in taverns after a long day, accidents and tragedies along the roads, and mysterious incidents in caves. It's the kind of world where you can't help but wonder what's around the next corner, or what's waiting for you in that uncharted forest. The game includes some mini-games for fishing, mining, and lockpicking, which may add a fun layer to the exploration. They're not required though. If you don't want them, you can disable them in the options. Overall, I find the exploration in Drova to be one of its most exciting aspects. It's full of surprises, secrets, and challenges that keep you engaged and constantly wanting to uncover more. The sense of wonder, discovery, and a bit of anxiety made me feel like I was back playing RPGs as a kid, when every new area was a surprise. Now, let's talk about combat, one of the core pillars of Drova. As an action RPG, combat is essential, and you have the freedom to develop your character in multiple ways, from melee weapons to ranged combat or even magic. You can focus on your strength, dexterity, or mind, each affecting how you play, but not all builds are created equal. In my first playthrough, I went with a sword and shield tank. While it was strong, I struggled with the timing of the shield parry. There is a small delay when raising the shield that messed up my timing, and the perfect blocking my enemies was paramount. Most likely escalation on my part, to be honest. The most effective build I found was a two-handed axe with a mix of abilities and magic for utility. The reach and wide arc of the axe allowed me to hit enemies easily while dodging their attacks, making it a very strong combination. Ranged combat, on the other hand, felt slower and less efficient. You have to reload arrows or stones mid-combat, which slows you down. Dexterity-based builds with daggers are fast, but require you to get up really close to enemies without being tanky, which wasn't great for me. The spear was okay, but it hit in a very narrow space compared to the axe. Magic is viable, but it really shines towards the endgame. Each build has its pros and cons, and some can be more challenging. They offer replayability though, so once you know the game, trying different builds may become a fun challenge. Drova uses classic RPG combat mechanics: a red health bar, a white focus bar that builds through combat, and a green stamina bar. Focus is used to cast spells or abilities, and stamina is needed for dodging and parrying. Nothing new here. You see your stamina bar, or I should say arc, under your character when you're in active combat. If you run out of stamina, you're open to being hit or stunned by special enemy attacks. You can also learn combos, which are powerful attacks if timed correctly, dealing more damage than regular attacks. They're just chained attacks though. Each weapon has its own attack range and special attacks. The axe, for example, has wide arcs and a bottom shaft hit, while the spear attacks in a straight line and has a special repeated thrusting attack. Combat feels varied, and experimentation is key to finding what works best for you. It seemed to me that when you attack, you're committed to the animation unless you dodge, so learning enemy moves is crucial. So dodging allows you to avoid being locked into an attack animation, and this becomes even more important at the new insane difficulty, where enemies have more complex attack patterns. The devs didn't simply raise enemies' health and damage and lower the odds on insane. That's nice. Food is an important resource. It regenerates health over time, so always keep your character fed, and learn recipes for additional buffs. That slow regeneration really comes in handy outside of combat to save your consumables. Healing items like herbs and potions are essential when things get rough, and they will a lot. Some potions heal instantly, but most remedies take time, adding a tactical layer when you're in the heat of battle. Traps are another useful tool. You can buy or craft them, and they're especially effective in arena fights. Crowfits, for example, will bleed enemies when they step on them. The bleed effect stacks a few times, so you can set a bunch of them on the ground and kite your enemy to death. Monsters vary in behavior. Some will ambush you, while others warn you with growls or cries. Occasionally, you'll even see monsters fighting each other, which is a nice touch that adds immersion to the world. At the start of the game, you're a lowly peasant with just a stick, so combat feels daunting. But over time, as you level up, gather better gear and refine your skills, you become a true force to be reckoned with. It's a slow climb, but it feels earned. When you finally get your first real armor, it's a huge milestone, and returning to those early enemies becomes a satisfying revenge. As for equipment, it's an integral part of your character progression. Drova follows the classic modern RPG rarity progression: white to green to blue to purple, with orange being legendary. Legendary items, often from the ancient bygoners, are found through exploration, quests, and delving into ruins. You can find some of those powerful items relatively early, but you can only equip stronger gear once your character's prowess is high enough. Merchants sell decent equipment early on, but you'll mostly find upgrades in the wild or through factions like the Ruin Raiders, who offer better stock as you progress through their storyline. As someone who plays a decent amount of old titles, I think one of the best features of Drova in this regard is its modern quality of life improvements, especially in inventory management. You don't need to worry about weight or encumbrance. You can loot everything and sell what you don't need with just a couple of clicks. I loved to see that they have been inspired by old games, but still managed to insert modern solutions to improve the overall experience. Overall, combat in Drova is fine. It's not my favorite aspect of the game because I found it a bit clunky, but it's not bad. There is room for different playstyles. Factions play a vital role in Drova. The two major ones, the Nemeton and the Remnants, drive the main storyline. You'll need to join one, experiencing the story from their perspective. Minor spoilers ahead, if I want to talk about factions at all. The Nemetons are devoted to protecting their city and society, firmly believing Drova is the promised land. In contrast, the Remnants, a splinter group, have rejected this belief and seek a way to leave the world entirely. These factions share a common origin but pursue vastly different goals, and their members are diverse in methods and motives, making them feel authentic. Joining a faction isn't about grinding repetitive quests. Every mission is unique and thoughtfully designed, giving you a sense of the faction's philosophies before you commit. Once you choose a side, some surprises await, and the story unfolds in ways unique to that faction. There is no outright good or bad faction, just people following their tribal instincts. After joining, faction NPCs acknowledge and welcome you, which adds a nice touch of immersion. Camps also feature restricted areas that become accessible only after allegiance, locking you out of the other faction's restricted zone. These areas contain unique NPCs, merchants, and items, and they host significant portions of the main story. The faction you pick influences your perspective on the story and its ending. While the overall narrative doesn't change a whole lot, your chosen point of view adds depth to the experience. There are also two other factions neutral to your allegiance to the Nemeton or to the Remnants. The Bonded, a druidic faction, live in the heart of a nearly impenetrable forest, claiming harmony with divine beings. They want nothing to do with the other factions, but their storyline delivers some of the game's most beautiful and heart-wrenching moments. Lastly, the Ruin Raiders are focused only on exploring ancient bygoner ruins. They occasionally collaborate with other factions and provide access to some of the game's most exciting enemies, treasures, and lore. 4 factions feel just right for an indie game. I think they're well written, with maybe just the Ruin Raiders being a bit generic. Drova is a pixelated isometric RPG, so you might think you know what to expect. Almost. The pixel art graphics are incredibly detailed, to the point where you can even see your reflection in ponds and streams. This game also boasts some of the most beautiful pixelated cutscenes I ever encountered. Again, passion and attention to details. The characters use a bunch of what I would call emotes during dialogue to emphasize what they're saying, and honestly, they're pretty well done. The camera follows your mouse pointer, letting you scout ahead a bit, which is a neat touch. Each biome is meticulously crafted and visually distinct. The impenetrable forest and the red moor stood out to me the most, with their rich atmosphere. I think Drova is a testament to how you don't need jaw-dropping graphics to make a good game. Let's talk about the sound. The game isn't voice acted, in case you were even wondering, aside from the opening and ending cutscenes, but it does feature a German bard performance.
Wandern zwischen Welten, das Heimweh wie Schwerter zustößt. Kriegerherzen, die sich stellten, wandern stets zurück zum Licht.
Yep, take that, Priscilla's song. Now, on to the music. Drova's music is beautiful. It's atmospheric and blends perfectly with the game's Celtic fantasy vibe. Each location or biome has its own unique track, and there are even a few distinct themes for combat. Alright, let's wrap this up. Drova is a solid indie game that taps into the nostalgia of old-school RPGs. Sure, it has some typical indie limitations, like a railroaded main story and a bit too much backtracking through the same areas. But its great atmosphere, immersive world, and bold storytelling more than make up for it. Combat is fine, and while the game doesn't hold your hand, it does include some modern quality-of-life features, like an easy-to-manage inventory and a simple bartering system for merchants. A full playthrough will take around 30 to 40 hours, which is impressive for a game of this scope. Personally, as someone who loves zero-to-hero stories, Drova nails that journey. The world is rich with secrets to uncover and feels truly immersive. At 25 euros or dollars, depending on your region, is worth the price. I had a great time with it. If you're a fan of old school RPGs, especially ones like Gothic, Drova is definitely worth checking out. Anyway, that's all I can think about this game. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff that helps me reach more RPG enthusiasts out there. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.